All right, welcome in. Week 5 of the college football season. We got a lot going on here on this Friday. It is the college football kickoff show powered by WagerTalk.com. We've got our Friday crew ready to roll here on this day for you. Arkansas, Texas A&M, Colorado taking on UCF, North Carolina against Duke. We'll have those 3 game breakdowns for you. And then we'll go roundtable and have a discussion about 2 of the bigger games coming up this weekend between Illinois and Penn State. And then, of course, Georgia and Bama. In the meantime, we got a boatload of big market movement and a handful of games here across the board as we welcome in the one and only Jesse, don't call me Deion Sanders Schule, Bryan Leonard in the house, ready to go. And, of course, TC. Teddy Covers, ready to rock on this week 5 of college football. Big shout out to those of you joining us on the live broadcast here. Any questions about games, drop them in the chat room. Those watching on the replay, drop them in the comments section as we will be keeping an eye on all the comments right up to kickoff, try to get you as much information as we know how. Let's get into it here. Bryan Leonard, kick it off for us here. Let's head to the SEC. Arkansas taking on Texas A&M. The market just refuses to give Arkansas any love here. Another dog spot. This time I'm seeing all sorts of money continuing to roll in on A&M. 6 is what I'm seeing that number now. Man, it was as little as 3.5 just a couple of days ago. So what gives here, Bri? How you breaking this one out?
Yeah, the Razorbacks interplay at 3-1, but they did lose their only game against a ranked opponent in a 39-31 loss at Oklahoma State. They're also looking to avenge a 34-22 home loss to the Aggies a season ago. This team's done a good job in line play. I like to take a look at how teams do offensively and defensively running on the lines. They're averaging 5.55 yards per carry, only allowing 3.01. That's pretty impressive. But the passing game really hasn't been on track as of late. They've only got a 4-4 touchdown to interception ratio on the season. So they still need a little bit more work in this passing game. And this is the first of 3 straight ranked opponents for the Razorbacks. They get to face Tennessee and LSU on deck. So it's a tough schedule coming up. They need to get this victory. And as you mentioned, the line has been going up a little bit as the week has gone on. Texas A&M completely outplayed in a 23-13 loss to the Irish to open up the season. And they've since handled McNeese State, Florida, and Bowling Green. Well, the Falcons took them to the wire a week ago. The running game has been pretty good, producing 5.89 yards per carry, but they will be facing off against a strong stop unit on Saturday, probably the strongest they've faced. We backed the Aggies in that opener against Notre Dame and paid the price. They just did not look good. The quarterback play hasn't been as good as what I thought it was going to be. And that's why we're a little bit wondering why they're taking money in this matchup. They haven't shown us enough for us to want to lay these points. If it gets up to 7, I'll be on Arkansas in this one. I don't think there's that much of a difference between these 2 teams. But as of right now with the line of 6, I'm just leaning with the underdog here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Jimbo ain't walking through that door. He had a ton of success against Arkansas when he was there at A&M, but it's a new day, it's a new era, and I think Weigman is one of the most overrated quarterbacks in the country, but market seems to like him in this spot at home, taking on Arkansas. All right, Jesse, don't call me Deion Sanders. You love yourself some Colorado Buffaloes. I remember you gushing last week on this show about how much you loved Deion as a coach and didn't think he was over. No, I'm only kidding you. You hate him. So what are we going to do this week as he's on the road in Orlando after a Hail Mary victory at home against Baylor? Now he's got to take in one of the guys that's not going to be interested in hearing any of it in Gus Malzahn. So 2 touchdowns, 14 and a half, somewhere in that ballpark. What do you think we're going to get?
Yeah, I'm not very popular with the Colorado fan base. They were letting me have it all week. When they came back to beat Baylor, I was getting messages on YouTube and on Twitter. It was kind of like that Kirk Cousins meme where he goes, "You like that?" And I had the over in the game. So, yeah, Yeah, I did like that. But at the end of the day, that was Baylor. Baylor is projected to be one of the worst teams in the Big 12. Their defense, isn't known to have this fearsome pass rush. Baylor gets 8 sacks on Shadur Sanders. Obviously, a very lucky win. I look at this Colorado team. I know the fans are telling me we're 3-1. We're so much better than we were last year, but I'm not sure the numbers really indicate that. I mean, their big weaknesses last year, of course, their offensive line couldn't keep Shadur upright, and they couldn't stop the run. And if you look at the numbers, they've allowed 603 rushing yards so far this year. That's just over 150 rush yards per game. And they were allowing over 200 rush yards per game last year. However, they did play TCU and Oregon last year, 2 ranked teams. They haven't played a ranked team yet. And the teams they've played instead of TCU and Oregon, Baylor, who almost beat them on their own in their own building, and an FCS team. I don't think they can stop. I don't think they're any better at defending the run than they were last year. Whether or not their offensive line is better, I mean, it certainly wasn't the case last week. And I think this is a nightmare matchup for them. The nation's #1 rushing attack, UCF, is averaging 375 yards per game. A true dual threat quarterback, and dual threat quarterbacks have given the Buffaloes issues. Cam Miller had a season high 81 yards and 2 touchdowns on 16 carries for North Dakota State in their opener. And then Sawyer Robertson for Baylor, who's not even known as much of a runner. He had a career high 82 yards on 9 carries with a touchdown. You look at those numbers, you got to like the chances of KJ Jefferson going off. And then they got 3 running backs that are all averaging 6 or 7 yards a carry. And Colorado might be 3-1 on the season. They've been down at halftime, down pretty significantly at halftime in 3 of their 4 games. I like UCF to get off to a good start here, so I would lean Central Florida first half -7.5.
Oh, Gus Malzahn never met a blowout he didn't like, man. It should be very interesting to see how he treats Buffalo and Dion in this game here, as Orlando will be rocking, no doubt, anytime Colorado comes to town. Don't forget, you're joining us live here today in the chat room. You got to love anybody named Peasy. Shout out to Peasy in the house looking for that sauce. We're going to do our best to get it to you here. And a big shout out to those joining us, Jimmy, Brady Marks and company, joining us on TikTok as well as Instagram. So go ahead, drop any questions you have on the games, guys, in the chat room now. We'll get to them at the end. And, of course, those on the replay that are watching, hit us up in the comments section here. We'll cover all the games you have interest in, and hopefully one of them centers around this one, Teddy, as I guess it's never good when a coach offers to retire to make his team better. I'm thinking North Carolina, who I think in the look-ahead spot on DraftKings, if I'm not mistaken, this was about -1, that they would have been a road favorite in this spot prior to getting their ass handed to them by JMU. It's a 4-point swing. It's still hovering around 2.5, 3. Is it too much of an overreaction? Is it buy low on North Carolina, or are we out altogether with this team?
So I'm going to buy low on North Carolina, but in a weird way. Let me talk about it. The Tar Heels 3-1 straight up, but 0-3-1 against the spread. So they've been something of an overvalued commodity. They were lucky to beat Minnesota in a previous step-up game, obviously losing a step-down game in straight-up fashion last week. A horrible first half, and when you give up 70 points, you didn't do a whole lot right. Duke, on the other hand, 4-0 straight up. They've been real good, but they haven't faced a team with an offense yet. That said, number 15 in the country in yards per play allowed. They're only giving up 4.0 yards per play. That's with many of the elite teams. You look at the top 10 teams or the top 15 teams in yards per play allowed, you're going to see a lot of elites there. And Duke. Now, Duke hasn't won this series since 2018, but the last 2 years, down to the wire battles. Last year, 47-45, double overtime. The year before, 38-35. Both tight shootouts. So the Blue Devils feel like they're, quote-unquote, due to get one. And maybe they are. But if I'm going to buy low, the concept here is buying low on North Carolina's defense. All right, this total's sitting, 56 and a half right now. They gave up 70 points last week. First, let me start with this. I trust Manny Diaz as a defensive head coach. All right. And Duke's defense so far this year, bet on all the way. So maybe we see North Carolina slow it down a little bit, not move the football, end zone to end zone. Maybe we see some field goals. I'm not convinced the Tar Heels are getting in the 30s and 40s in this ballgame. But Duke's not trading points with anyone. This is not an offense that's primed to click, even against weaker defenses. And I'm confident the Tar Heels are going to come with a little bit of better preparation this time around on the defensive side of the football under Jeff Collins. So put it together. You might have to hold your nose to bet this one, but I'm looking at the under between the Tar Heels and the Blue Devils. And we're talking 56.5. It's not even a crazy high total. Nonetheless, I'm seeing field goals, not touchdowns. I'm seeing two teams that are going to put a whole lot of effort and intensity into the defensive side of the football this week. Under Duke, North Carolina.
Manny Diaz has his way. There'll be very few points in this game, Teddy. I'm with you there. Manny, definitely a defensive-minded guy over at Duke. So there you got it. We got 3 games in this Week 5 slate that these guys have broken down for you. We're going to talk about 2 of the mainstays here this week, games that feature top 25 teams. A lot of interest in both of these games, and I do see that we've got a couple of questions rolling in on a couple of games. I know Eric D wants thoughts on Navy UAB. We're going to get to that. Oklahoma State, Kansas State, I saw. We'll get to that one, but let's talk Penn State and Illinois. Is Illinois now off to a 4-0 start on the season? In fact, I believe is the only team in the country that has multiple wins over ranked opponents. But good Lord, a couple of those, they were by the skin of their teeth. They could easily be 2-2. So don't let the record fool you. The market ain't buying it, as they got Penn State at what, 17? 17 and a half, somewhere in that. But God damn, is that a lot of points, Jesse? What are you doing here with Illinois on a 4-0 team, multiple wins over top 25 teams? Are you buying Illinois in this spot?
You know, I got to be careful because I'm going to get a reputation as somewhat of a hater. But James Franklin's not on my Christmas list either. I was on the wrong side of that game last year when his backup quarterback did the fake kneel so he could get the cover on the last play. I mean, this looks like a boatload of points. It looks like a tricky spot for Illinois. They're coming off that primetime win over Nebraska. You'd think that, they might be starting to like their own smell a little bit. Situationally, not ideal for Illinois, but they're just a solid football team. What do? They run the ball. They play defense. They're pretty good against the run. It looks like they match up well against this Penn State team by all accounts. And the line is a little bit inflated, or it appears to be a little inflated. I worry about James Franklin, though, late in games, the way he likes to close things out. So my look would be the dog for the first half in this game.
For another first half, kind of love where Jesse's approaching these. I don't want to have to suffer through 4 quarters of James Franklin, so I'm just going to be done at the break. I love the way you approach that, Jesse. But Bryan Leonard, if there was anybody at WagerTalk that would be making a case for a damn dog here, it would be you, my friend. But it is Bielema, after all. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe James Franklin, when he's this kind of favorite, he's this kind of favorite for a reason. But are you making a case for Illinois at all in this one?
Jesse made a great point about Penn State. Penn State, the coach knows what the line is, and it's tough to go against a team in that regard because he does try to cover the spread. But this line, to me, is a little outrageous. You take a look at Illinois, things are looking really bright for the Illinois fans. Gotten off to a nice 4-0 start, and it included upsetting Nebraska last week on the road, a team that a lot of people were getting a little bit ahead of their skis on with the Cornhuskers. And Illinois played them really well last week. It was a really good game. But they're going to be stepping up in class here in this one as they take on a Penn State team. They beat them last year 30-13. Now, the passing game for Illinois has been really good so far. Their combined passing record for the quarterbacks, 168.04. and they got a 10-0 touchdown to interception advantage. That is not something I don't think we expected out of Illinois coming into this season, but you have to take it with a little bit of grain of salt. Illinois, even though they have not played the best schedule thus far, they're +7 in turnovers. That's not going to continue in Big Ten country playing these physical teams like Penn State. So you will see some regression out of Illinois here. Penn State 3-0, blowout winners over West Virginia and Kent State. But a really tight contest against Bowling Green just a couple weeks ago in a game they really could have lost outright. Bowling Green's a team that's been very good when stepping up in class this year. So I think this could be, after beating Kent State so badly last week, I think this could be a letdown situation for the Lions. Like I said, they ran all over Illinois last year, and they've got UCLA and USC, the two California teams, on the schedule for the Big Ten next week. I'm sure they're looking to make a first impression against those two teams and show them that who's the boss, along with Ohio State in this conference. So I kind of like Illinois here. You're getting the +18 here. I think it'll be a lower scoring affair. I don't expect Illinois to have that kind of success in the passing game in which they did earlier. So I could either take Illinois here, and the first half is probably a pretty good idea, or I could play the under. I'd like to play the Penn State side under here, but if he's looking to cover that spread late in the game, I don't want to be on the other side. So give us Illinois. Also like the under in this game overall.
See, Bry, always come through for us. We just knew anybody here looking to make a case for the dog, it was going to be Bryan Leonard. By the way, Bryan, in the chat room currently, they want the cat to roar. So I'll let you decide how that works out for you here. Also, if there's anybody on this panel that can give you a thought on Akron versus Miami of Ohio, it's going to be Bryan Leonard when we're done here. So stick tight, Slippery Rock. We'll get to that game for you. No doubt Bryan Leonard will be favoring one of those two teams here. As Teddy, the case can be made. I mean, I just looked it up. I've got James Franklin, a ridiculous 71-43 against the number as a favorite. It gets even higher when he's a double-digit favorite here. This is a ton of points at home for this team. Which side are you laying on, one way or the other, or is it a total game in your opinion?
Oh, no, this one's a clear choice for me. And with all due respect to my accomplished colleagues on the panel, I'm looking the other way. If I'm playing, I'm laying with Penn State. Both you guys said it. Jesse, you said it. Bryan, you said it. This is a coach who knows what the point spread is, all right? This is a Saturday night game in Happy Valley, which Ralph Michaels has told us is the single strongest home field in all of college football. When you talk about it, now it's not an official whiteout. Everyone's wearing white. It's a whiteout in Penn State on national TV, on set. This is no letdown spot. This is a step-up spot for a team that hasn't really faced anyone since week one. And I don't mind a team that hasn't faced anyone since week one. You know, they had the week one game where we saw them look good, but after that, you get all kinds of adjustments. We had a game where they were really flat. Last week, they faced an opponent that couldn't move the football. But in this instance, we have a coach who knows what the point spread is. We have an underdog who's notched a couple of really impressive wins. Make no mistake about it, but not against a defense of this caliber. You know, Penn State's a top 10 defense. Illinois, who moved the football against Kansas and moved the football against Nebraska, I think will have a harder time moving the football here. And at some point, I look for the Nittany Lions to pull away and blow them out. Like I said, if I'm playing, I'm laying.
64.2%, 43-24-2. Franklin is a double-digit favorite. The man knows the spread and he knows the score in the fourth quarter, man. Very hard to go against him as this big a favorite here. We promise, it's funny, there's a guy named Jesse Schule in the chat wants nothing to do with the Akron and Miami of Ohio game. Never mind. It is the Jesse, so forget it. Well, don't worry about it, Jesse. We won't go there for you. We do have one other. Oh, there he looks just like you, Jesse. That's kind of a shocker right there. That's in, is that a doppelganger? No, that is Jesse Schule. Nothing to do with that game. Don't worry, Bryan Leonard has got you covered there. We do have, of course, maybe the biggest game of the Week 5 slate to go over, and that is going to be all about Bama taking on Georgia, or Georgia heading to Alabama, as it may be. And we're seeing what, 1.5, somewhere in that ballpark here. It's a different Bama, though, is it not, Jesse? I think Bama, you'll have something to say on here. Saban ain't walking through that door, so I don't give a crap what Alabama did to Kirby Smart in years past. It doesn't matter to me. How about you here? Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, Georgia, they got as many losses as they do championships the last 2-3 years. Certainly the best, most dominant team in football the last 3 years. The only team they haven't been able to beat is Alabama. And like you said, Nick Saban isn't walking through that door. But if you're going to replace a guy who's considered to be the GOAT of college football as far as coaching goes, Kalen DeBoer is not a bad guy to start with. And, I want to ask you guys this. Do you guys think that Nick Saban could have gone into Seattle and led the Huskies to a Pac-12 championship, beat the Oregon Ducks twice, take them to the playoff final? Because there's not many guys that are capable of doing that. And Kalen DeBoer, he's right around that age. He's 49 years old, right around the same age Nick Saban was when he arrived at Alabama. And I took the time to, break it down and look at what Saban had accomplished compared to what DeBoer had accomplished when they arrived at Alabama. And it's basically, it looks like the same guy. A conference championship and a power conference, a couple Coach of the Year awards. I was impressed with Kalen DeBoer as a coach. You look at the 2 wins against Oregon last year, and Dan Lanning being from the Georgia program. And I mean, DeBoer thoroughly outcoached Dan Lanning in both of those wins, in my opinion. I have faith that DeBoer will have schemes that Kirby can't deal with. I got to roll with the Tide, getting points at home. Although I see you got Alabama as a favorite here. Last I looked, they were
earlier today
+2.
It's bouncing back and forth right now.
Yeah, it's going back and forth. Yes.
Yeah, and literally, about 15 minutes ago, before we came on air, there were books that had Alabama -1. There were books that had Pick'em. There were books that had Georgia -1. We're looking at the free WagerTalk live odds screen right now. Yep. It looks like they've taken out all of the Alabama at the plus price. Yep. So the Alabama, so that's it's now back to Georgia plus, or Alabama. I say laying point. They took out all the. They took Georgia -1. Sorry, they took Georgia +1. So they got all the money now is at Pick'em or with Georgia as the favorite. The Alabama -1s got taken out. Sorry if I said that really convolutedly, but that's what happened.
Yeah. So the bottom line, Jesse, is that pick them pretty much in many spots. There might be a straggler of -1 in Alabama one way or the other. But I got a feeling that's going to happen right up until kickoff, where it wouldn't shock me if it goes pick them one way or the other. But to your point, Bama at home, been a pretty safe bet across the board here. So we'll see what it goes off on that one. And Bryan Leonard, what do you think about this Georgia team? Is there a weakness to it? Because I'm watching Alabama the last couple of weeks, and I'm watching that run defense, and I'm worried because they haven't done a great job of stopping it yet. What do you think we're going to get from Bama here against this Georgia defense? Do they have enough to be able to overtake them in it?
Well, coming into the season, I had Georgia ranked number 1 in my power ratings, Alabama number 9. And Georgia enters play 3-0 on the season, but they really did struggle against Kentucky on the road last week. It was a situation that Kentucky had been embarrassed before. Georgia obviously looking past Kentucky to this Alabama team. And while that wasn't the type of performance the Bulldogs would normally put out, keep in mind, they blew out Clemson in the opener, and everybody thought, oh, Clemson, they're not using the portal, and they're not going to be very good. Well, Clemson has looked terrific ever since then. So even though Georgia did not look good against Kentucky, I think they get a little bit of a boost from now what Clemson has done since that point on. Alabama is coasted against Western Kentucky, South Florida, and Wisconsin. So this, to me, is a big step up in class for the Tide. Both teams have dominated in the passing game, basically moving the ball at will. but they've been terrific in pass defense. So whoever wins this game will be the one that's controlled the passing game. I have to think the Bulldogs have all the motivation here. I mean, take a look at last year. They were clear number one in the nation before losing to the Tide 27-24 in the conference championship game. That loss ultimately cost them a chance to defend their national title. This is a game Georgia circled. I'm sure Alabama has circled it as well. But if your only loss the year before is to this team and it cost you a chance for the national championship, you are prepared. And I expect Georgia to be prepared here. I think it'll be more of a lower scoring game than what these offenses have put up so far. But I like Georgia. Georgia's a deep team. Alabama's a deep team. And I love the new coach. So we've got two of the top teams in the country here. And as long as you're catching points either way, I can see either team catching the points and people out there betting it. So I like Teddy said, this is bounce back and forth. And you mentioned it. I think it's going to bounce back and forth all week. You can catch a 1.5 either way. As soon as that pops up, I would take it. But as for right now, the way the line is, I'm leaning towards Georgia.
You know, Teddy, it's interesting this year because we got a 12-team playoff. So I don't know that, this game in years prior might have been for all the marbles at this point in the season. It's really not at this point. So you got to wonder, how much are we really laying on the line when push comes to shove here? Because both these teams in all likelihood will be a top 12 playoff team and they're going with a chance to win a national championship. Do you think that that's the case as well here? Because it feels like it's lost a little something.
So I have a bet on Georgia for this game. I advise my clients to do the same. And I do my write-ups. I post a play and then do the write-ups so the clients get it right away. And I'm struggling with this write-up. I'm like, how do I explain why I like Georgia? And it's hard to explain why I just like Georgia. Bryan said some of it. The fact that they lost in the SEC championship game last year means that of the two teams, who's going to circle it more? Georgia's going to circle it more. But my bottom line is this. I just think Georgia's the better team, And I know we're talking about two top 10 squads. I know we're talking about two teams that, in terms of early season play, the only one of the two to get devalued in any way was Georgia because they had a tough time against Kentucky. In my mind, that's a good thing for the Bulldogs. We're laying less as a result in that ball game, and I'm certainly sure that their focus was on full display during the 2 weeks. And this is, for as much as I respect Kalen DeBoer, and I do enormously, this is a spot where I trust the coach who's been in this rivalry before, and I just trust Georgia a little bit more. I think the Bulldogs get the win. I played them on the money line.
Bulldogs for the win here. Keep an eye on that line, guys. Bouncing back and forth. Bottom line is just pick the winner. I think you'll be safe one way or the other there. That's it.
Don't say that, Joe.
Go with the winner. All right. That is some hard hitting. That's some hard hitting advice right there. And don't forget, by the way, those of you joining us live, I see a couple of games in the chat rooms. We'll go over here for you guys. Those watching on the replay, don't forget, drop any questions you have in the comments section, as we'll be checking them right up until kickoff all weekend long. We'll do our best to get you whatever information we can between now and then. All right. So, Bryan, I gave you're up first here because I promised Jesse, some guy in the chat room, that I would not ask him about Miami of Ohio and Akron. But you, my friend, are absolutely somebody I would look to when it comes to these two teams. So -12, I think, is what he's seeing. What are you thinking in this game? How much faith you got in Akron?
I think it's down to 10 right now. I'm seeing a couple 9.5s and some 10s. I think that's probably the right side here in Akron. Although Akron's played in the 4 weeks, they played 3 major programs: Ohio State, Rutgers out of the Big Ten, and South Carolina. They were in the South Carolina game for a little while, but when you see the teams drop down in class, which the MAC does, obviously at least to me, they're the worst team or worst conference from power strength in college football. I would like to play the underdogs. And if you take a look at Akron has been really bad defending the pass this year. The passing rating defense, 153.81. They've allowed 10 touchdowns and only had 2 interceptions. But those are a lot higher class offenses than what they will see against Ohio. Ohio, from the passing standpoint, their passing rating is only 118.62. They've actually thrown 5 interceptions and only have 2 touchdowns. The best teams they played, Kentucky last week, and then Syracuse in the opener. They lost both of those. Syracuse, I thought was going to be pretty good. I know Trick's not on the show, but they didn't look good last time out. So maybe they're not as good as what we thought they were going to be. So it's hard to say you're impressed by either one of these teams thus far. Let's just say I'm not as impressed from Ohio as you normally would be. This is a team that's been very good in this conference over the years. Northern Illinois, Toledo, they've been up there with the best of them. I just don't think they're very good. And right now, laying 10, keep in mind when these teams play in this conference, they're only a bus ride for the most part away from where they're playing. So the home advantage, I've made a lot of money by betting on the road teams in this conference for years because they really don't have much of a home advantage. I went to Akron. I've been to games in Akron. This was quite a while ago. But they don't bring in a lot of crazy fans. Unless a game is nationally televised in this conference, that's really the only time you get a lot of the crazy kids out there that are partying all night and give you a home field advantage. So I would like to play Akron here. I just think the line's a little bit too high. It's not going to make my card, but if it was at 11, I think I would play it.
How's this for a trend, Rise? I'm digging in here just in honor of your Akron squad here. This makes sense to me is that when you have road underdogs of a touchdown or more in the MAC, and you've got a total that's under, looks like about 47, 38 and 21 to the cover here, 65%. So Akron is definitely a team you want to consider at plus 10. And by the way, they've covered by more than a field goal as a road dog of more than a touchdown. So interesting with that game coming up this weekend. Also interesting, Teddy, is we are being asked about a possible sandwich with your Michigan Wolverines taking on Minnesota. Minnesota is still trying to figure out where they went and how they got lost in the second half against Iowa because they just never came out of the locker room. But Minnesota right now with an opportunity to right the ship. But with what we got from Michigan, should we be excited about that? Or do we think what we got against USC going to be a little bit different this week?
So I don't love the spot for the Wolverines, flat out. Obviously off USC before the trip to Washington, it's not a spot where you're excited about laying points with a team that is down from last year. There's no mistake about it. And what the Wolverines were able to do last week against USC, which is basically a run-heavy game plan and just pound the ball up the gut, I'm not convinced that's going to work against the Gophers. Minnesota's defense has been pretty stout against the run so far this season. And I think that could continue on Saturday. That being said, how does Minnesota score in this game? Yeah. I mean, this is not a potent offense. All right. There's no game-breaking receivers that scare you. There's no quarterback play that scares you. We saw Iowa pretty well control the flow against the Gophers' offense last week, and I wouldn't be surprised if Michigan's defense is capable of doing the same thing here. So maybe the under is the better bet as opposed to the side in this ballgame. It's not a step-up spot for the Wolverines, but I'm not convinced Minnesota's good enough offensively to take advantage.
Yeah, usually, Teddy, when we see games like 34.5 and a double-digit favorite, we tend to want to look at the dog, right, and think that that's going to be a tough number to cover if you ain't expecting at least 35 points. But I don't know. I'm with you. How the hell is Minnesota scoring enough points to even cover a double-digit spread? That's the problem. They are absolutely horrific offensively. Congratulations, PJ Fleck. You did it again. We've got a question from Jesse Schule in the chat room for Jesse Schule. Jesse, I'm just curious. Jesse in the chat room would like to know your thoughts on what in the hell UNLV is going to do with their quarterback quitting, because he tried to fleece him for NIL money, but they're saying he never got it in writing. So he just walked away, and now UNLV is going, what the hell are we supposed to do? The market kind of overreacted. They were a 4-point favorite. I saw after the news broke, -1, maybe even less than that. So the market thought he was Sluka, what, a 3-point difference from the backups? Do you agree with that, or do you think it was a complete overreaction that UNLV should still be a 3-4-point favorite?
I like Fresno State in this spot anyways. I'm looking at UNLV. They got that win over Kansas, and they're getting a lot of credibility for that. I mean, last time I checked, beating Kansas isn't a big deal anymore. In fact, the combined record of UNLV's opponents, 1-10. So you could say they haven't really beaten anybody. And to be honest with you, I think there's still a lot to come out on this story. I talked about it on WagerTalk today with Teddy and Prez. And at the time I said, listen, we've just heard about this quarterback quitting. We're going to hear more throughout the week, and it ain't going to be good for UNLV. And about an hour later, the news comes out that running back Michael Allen also walked off the team, also redshirted. He's not complaining about money. He's complaining about touches. And there's some gaslighting going on. I got to tell you that I've watched a lot of the big podcasts, mainstream media, all over Twitter. When Michael Allen walked off the team, the headlines are saying fourth leading rusher. And then that gets spun into fourth string running back. I got to tell you, this kid, Michael Allen, is not the fourth string running back. He's the RB1. He was leading the team in carries heading into the Kansas game. He got benched. He only got 1 carry. That's why he's the fourth leading rusher. The leading rusher is the quarterback. They've got 3 running backs, all have 19 or 20 carries for just over 100 yards. So they got 3 guys with almost identical stats. And in my opinion, he's probably the better of the 3. He came from NC State, was a solid backup at NC State, averaging 5 yards per carry in a power conference. So when I see this spinning going on, calling him a fourth string running back, and some more spinning saying that this kid tried to extort at UNLV, nobody knows what the truth is, or anybody who does isn't telling so far. I'd find it hard to believe that this kid just made up a story that he was offered $100,000. I think somewhere, somehow, somebody led him to believe he was going to get some money. And if that's not the case, why did he come all the way to UNLV from Holy Cross? If he's a kid that wants money, and their offer to him was, we're not going to give you nothing, that doesn't make much sense either. So I think there's still bad news to come out for UNLV. I don't think they look good on this. I think Fresno State's a damn good team as well, and I think it's a good spot for them. So I like Fresno State plus the points this week.
All right. I hope that answers Jesse Schule's question in the chat room. But Bryan Leonard, you have something to add here. Boots on the ground at UNLV. What do you got for us?
Yeah, the latest is Derek Stevens, the owner of the Circa and a few other downtown casinos. The best thing to happen to Las Vegas since Teddy Saransky moved here. He's been terrific, and he's a big booster of these teams. And he came out and he said, he called him up and he goes, okay, if this guy wants $100,000 to keep him, we'll give you the $100,000 to do it. And the first thing they said is, no, don't worry about it. He's already left the building. He's not coming back, and we have no interest in doing that, which is why I prefer the UNLV side here. Because just keep in mind, and I don't want to disagree with Jesse here. He makes a lot of great points. If you're a player on this UNLV team and your quarterback and your running back have decided that money is more important to being on this team, and they've got a real chance of, if they can knock off Fresno and knock off Boise, to play in the final 12. I have to believe that this is a rallying point for this UNLV team here, and you're laying, less than what you would before. And I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a guy that I have a lot of respect for out there that breaks down every single player on the teams. And he said the second string and third string guys are just as good as the opener or the guy that's been with him. So the line has bounced back because they really went. It went to what was it like 4 and gone down to like the pick 'em. Yep. Now we're seeing money on UNLV too, and it's even taking even more money. So I would have to disagree with that. I think this is the season for UNLV. This is their point I like to play teams who have their back against the wall, and I think the Rebels have that here.
Coach Odom should be able to utilize that for sure there. I could see that, Brian. 2.5, by the way, is what we're starting to see. Also, the total big move, too, 54.5, seeing 50.5 in the marketplace on that one. That's going to be an interesting one because, boy, oh boy, if UNLV does win that game, then that's going to send an interesting message across the board as well. Teddy, one more for you here, as there seem to be a lot of people in the chat that have no interest in backing Baylor as a favorite after the way they lost against Colorado on the road. But my question to them, Teddy, is how in the hell can you back BYU, who got outgained by about 200 yards in that game against K-State, and were lucky to win that game, but now they're coming here to Baylor, and it looks like Baylor, the money keeps coming in on Baylor, and there's a lot of people that think the wrong team is favored here. I don't know about that. What about you?
Not my money coming in on Baylor, I'll tell you that. Not even close. And look, one of the things I love to do in college football, all right, you want to make money, like conceptually, how to make money in college football? Bet against stats. Stats lie on everything. You know, BYU annihilated K-State last week, all right? Yeah, K-State won the box score. K-State turned the ball over, all right? It wasn't a close game, and all the yards in the second half were garbage time yards. It's nonsense. I take that data and throw it the frick out, you know? But it shows up in all the, look at the rankings. Look, BYU's this and Baylor's that. The college football stats, in my opinion, will point you in the wrong direction far more often than it'll point you in the right direction. This is Baylor, and certainly it's supposed to be a get-right spot for Baylor. I get it. They're coming off a devastating loss in a game they should have won. They let it get away. They're returning home. And BYU, in theory, it's a flat spot coming off a big national TV win in a conference home. I mean, obviously, spot-wise, it points towards Baylor. I'm just not convinced Baylor's the better of these two teams. And I think the point spread is being overly influenced by statistics that I don't think matter. So I think the value here is on the BYU side of the equation. Didn't bet it, not on my card, but the only way I would look is towards the Cougs, not the Bears.
Yeah, a lot of people very high on this BYU team here, but a lot of people, does Dave Aranda make it this year if he loses another losing series? I don't know. I don't know how faithful they'll be to him in Baylor. Will they look to roll some heads in order to be able to get the program back up? Wasn't a great year last year. Not off to a great start so far this year. Off to a great start, though. And I think Slippery Rock has nailed it here, is the smash that like button in the chat room. Makes total sense to me, Slippery Rock. I'm with you here. It would do yourself a great service if you hit that like button for us. We would certainly appreciate it. Also, if you visit these guys over at WagerTalk.com, we'll start with you, Jesse. Locked, loaded, ready to roll on your page heading into this week 5 of college football. NFL, postseason baseball will be here. What do you got locked and loaded for us here today?
I got a 5% play for NFL on Sunday, and I'm doing pretty damn good with my 4 and 5% plays in 2024. I'm up 163 units with those top plays. That's number one at WagerTalk.com, and I'm pretty proud of that record. Unfortunately, the 2 and 3 star plays aren't doing nearly as well, or the 2 and 3% plays. I don't have as much success with those, but that just stick to the 4 and 5%, and we'll be just fine.
There you go. Over his page, WT.buzz/JS. How about you, Bryan Leonard? What do we got locked, loaded, ready to roll into this week 5?
Yeah, I haven't had a loss since Saturday. Been undefeated since then. I've got a 5% play in college football. It's my first 5% of the season. That's up right now. I have 3 plays currently up there, and I'm going to be putting a couple more up. I actually like the NFL card this week. We swept last Sunday, looking to get more of that going on this week, although I haven't put up any plays yet, looking for certain lines. But we've got that, and we've got a baseball play going today, and a couple nice underdogs in baseball the last couple days. Like this card for Friday.
Liking his card for Friday as well. And Teddy Covers. All right, Baylor BYU didn't make the card, But I know that card is growing as we speak. So what do you got for folks on your page at Wager Talk?
So on Saturday, we have a 5% big ticket like Brian. It is my first of the college football season. Long term, 2021, 61%. Counting every 5% play in every sport, 79 and 51. So I don't put out a ton of them, but they've consistently won for 3+ years. I'm expecting more of the same on Saturday. That's part of the card. And then on Sunday, I've got a 4-star game of the week blowout where I'm laying the points with a favorite that I think is going to annihilate. But don't buy any plays. Don't be stupid. Really. Buy a package. Get on board for the weekend. Get on board for the week. Get on board for the month. Take advantage of that 3-month offer at Wager Talk where you get a month free, $7 a day. Lots of great offers. I'd say don't buy any of my plays. Get on board with the package if you want to get on board. WT.buzz/TC.
Yeah, that goes with all of them there, guys. It is this is a great time of year. The most fun time of year here is we've got college football, NFL, Major League Baseball postseason. Oh, yeah, by the way, the NHL is back here, not to mention the NBA college hoops, all within the next couple of months. Great opportunity to partner up with these guys over at WagerTalk.com. All right. Yes, Eric D., it is a prez-free zone here. It's the only way we'll have it on the College Football Kickoff Show. We will be back, however, next Thursday, getting you ready again for Week 6 in the college football season. Want to thank Jesse Schule. Also want to thank Jesse Schule in the chat room. Great stuff by both of you. Bryan Leonard, always a pleasure, as well as Teddy Covers. Guys, hit that like button. Make sure you hit that little bell in the upper right-hand corner. Come back and join us again next week for another edition of the College Football Kickoff Show. Until then, enjoy the weekend. Cash those tickets. We'll see you again next week.